Hi everyone, I'm Stacey Feero, Senior Product Manager at Loblaw Digital and Chapter Lead of Women in Product Toronto. Welcome to the Refine Your Toolkit stage. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, without whom this event would not be possible. Just a quick reminder that if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. We have volunteers on standby to interact with you and answer any questions you may have. And also, just to be respectful of our speakers, turn off your notifications, be fully present, even though we're virtual. We want to make sure you're getting the most out of these talks today. So during this session, Real World Skills and Experience, we have three wonderful speakers. First on stage, we have Kate Zasada, Senior Product Manager at Zapier. Kate is a consumer product manager with a career built around growing products and new technologies. She's currently at Zapier, a leader in automation software for small businesses, where she's focused on growth and personalization products. Over her career in product management, she has worked on scaling consumer products, including work on growth and buyer experience at Etsy, building out the 3D printing marketplace at Shapeways, and launching the standalone news website for BuzzFeed News. As an accidental product manager after her degree in finance turned into a tech career, Kate has worked to help others find their path into product through teaching at product labs and General Assembly. Kate will share her expertise with you during our next presentation, Ship Boldly, Building Confidence for Launch Day. Please join me in welcoming Kate Zasada to our stage.
I want to tell you about my absolute worst product launch. I was a new product manager. I'd worked on a few internal tools and shipping small features at an e-commerce company, but my first really big project that I had pitched was an overhaul of our search feature. I saw how our customers weren't able to find what they were looking for. I researched best practices from our bigger competitors, and I knew this was important to help us grow our business. We worked for weeks on this change that seemed so straightforward on the surface. But new technical challenges came up constantly, and I had no idea how to resolve them. Weeks turned to months, and the project was way over scope. By the time we were finally ready to launch, I was ready to be done with search and move on to something less challenging. Launch day arrives, and we start first thing in the morning to get the new search backend working. Things are moving slowly. Every time we went to test on staging, there was another issue. Products disappearing from the website, errors, you name it. By the time we'd squashed all the bugs and gotten it live, it was 9 p.m. I took a cab home, relieved it was over, and I never had to think about search again. It wasn't over. I woke up the next morning at 6 a.m. to see an email from the CEO saying that all the products had disappeared from the website. Did this have anything to do with our launch yesterday? I raced to the office and started another stressful day, helplessly watching the incident unfold. It took hours to fix the issues we introduced and restore the website. Of course, being in e-commerce, this means our bugs actually cost the business a day's worth of sales. At the end of that second day, I knew I never wanted to go through anything like that ever again. And it's become my mission as a product manager to never again have a chaotic launch like that one, because launch day should be fun and exciting, not chaotic. It's the culmination of all of your hard work, and it should feel like a celebration. Today, I want to share some tactics I've found for gaining confidence in your launch quickly by leveraging what you have, user data, production code, to unearth constraints and improve communication in all of your launches. I found in my journey to de-risk product launches is that there's nothing more valuable than seeing your feature on production as early as possible. It might feel counterintuitive to do it live, but there's something powerful to seeing your feature come to life, piece by piece, to be forced to use it the same way your customers would within the context of your product, which can't be replicated by a mock-up or a prototype. It's the same idea of using MVPs to validate what we're building for our customers. We also want to build the technical details incrementally and iterate on them throughout the process, so we can see what works and what we might need to rethink early in the development process. Of course, on production does not mean we are launching to users just yet. We'll talk about some tools later. Before we dive into how you can get started working this way, a disclaimer. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to developing products. There's a time and a place for using production code to validate, and your job as a product manager is to understand if this is the right tool for the problem at hand. Every project is different. The maturity of your product, the tools you have available, and your team's willingness to experiment will all influence if this is the right choice for you. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to de-risking a launch. Working with code on production is a great way to validate that your solution is usable and that the design maps to the data you have available. It helps you see if it works within the constraints and flow of your existing product. This assumes you have an existing product with product market fit to scale, and you're not working on an early stage product. Building on production is also a good choice when the potential risks are high. Consider the impact to your users and the real or perceived risks to the business for your feature. As good product managers, we know that prioritizing the biggest risks and unknowns is better than trying to foresee all of the potential issues. Developing on production helps give us the opportunity to decouple our launch from when the actual code goes live to lower the technical risks to shipping. It also gives us opportunities to validate the data and the workflows through early alpha releases to our users before we launch. Developing on production is a good candidate when there's high risk with the implementations and bugs will be costly and bad, such as with my e-commerce launch, where real revenue was at stake, or if you want to roll out to a subset of users early to validate a new tool. This won't work for every launch. Engineers should be driving the technical decisions around tools. Your job is to think about mitigating the biggest risks you have and challenge the assumptions that we have on our team for how we launch our products. Start where you are within your organization. Build a system over time to methodically build confidence in how you ship new features. The tools you have available to help you develop safely in production will be different at every company. So start with your current capabilities and work with your team to understand if you have any of these tools available now, or if you can start to build them out in future projects. There's plenty of ways to put something into production without actually showing it to your external users. A few that I've used are feature flags, where we can conditionally allow parts of the code to be accessed, secret URLs, which we only share with some of our internal users, A/B tests, where we can show a feature to a small subset of our internal or external users, user groups, so that we can turn a feature on for all of our employees or people in a particular country, passwords, just throw a website up with password on it, and dark traffic, where we can send traffic to an old and a new service while only showing users the existing service. So let's take a look at an example. You work at a big e-commerce company, and we have to redesign the product page. It's the moneymaker, so it's risky, but we haven't touched the design in ages, and everyone knows that it could be better. Oh, and also, because we haven't touched it in ages, it's not using any of our new design systems or front-end frameworks, so there's a big technical rewrite we need to pair with our work. But we're smart, and we decided to build the new page using feature flags, so it's available immediately as the team writes code. The team is pushing new updates every day, and we see it all start to take shape after a few weeks. We prioritize getting a working front-end functionality so we can get a usable skeleton of the page as soon as possible. Once it's usable, though still very far from complete, we can start to access it via a feature flag and a private URL, which brings us to the first big benefit. There's a difference between looking passively at a mockup versus actually having to use a new design in your real work environment. The benefit to seeing a not even functional experience early in a project is there's a lot of assumptions about how user data will look in production that are difficult to capture in a static mockup. Do we really have profile information for most users? Does the user-generated photos actually look good enough to showcase on all of our pages? We love to see our mockups with pristine, beautiful stock photos, but it's important to see how our new designs look with real user data. And the best way to go around doing that is just go straight to production. See how it looks on your account. See how it looks on your team's accounts. You're going to find a lot of surprises, which is good. We still have plenty of time to refine this project before it's launched. So with our new product page, as a team, we could start to use it, the very incomplete versions once they're functional, to refine behaviors, see how the real user data fits within the constraints of our designs. It's one thing to see that data in a pixel-perfect mockup, but being able to test the uncontrollable nature of user-generated content and real user data in your designs is huge. Especially in legacy software or well-established products, there may be hidden variations of a seemingly simple product that this can help to expose to you early in your project. Computers are hard, and they really work like we expect them to. Keeping staging databases in sync with production is an imperfect science. There's workarounds, but at a certain point you have to decide. Is it more costly to build a system in staging to perfectly mimic production? Or can we flip the script and build a system in production that allows you to stage new features safely? I've worked at a few large-scale companies, and I'm here to tell you, I've never seen a stage environment that accurately represented the data and conditions of production. Things have always been easier when we invested in ways to decouple the push to production from when users get to see a new feature. Besides that really real benefit, it also helps break down the barrier of accessing the work in progress. By putting our new feature on production, you have easy access to see the latest and greatest progress from your team every day without worrying about staging data, local environments, or VPNs. As the design starts to come together, you can begin to share the URL with your stakeholders because any employee can access it at any time, which, especially right now as we all work remotely, is a huge time saver and benefit. It's incredibly useful to break down the barrier to seeing work in progress and see what your team is up to day after day and see it all come together quickly. Because even when it's half built and it's faked in many ways, being able to pull up code on production, it's kind of a way to flex. It makes your team look like you're flying and that you're moving very quickly. Showing progress through code on production feels fast, even if you're progressing at the same pace as any other project. As product managers, we know that optics matter, and I found this as a game changer for stakeholders being bought into the progress of your work. Seeing updates come together piece by piece helps to demystify the development process. You're not hiding away for 3 months building a new thing. Every week, you can share the incremental improvements, and your stakeholders can easily access it and play with it as the project continues. It also gives you an opportunity to start to slowly make the work in progress experience the default for your team or other internal users. This is still a long ways from launching. We're just making testing the new experience the default for a group of trusted stakeholders instead of asking them to build a new habit. Because at the end of the day, no one is going to test your new product unless you make it the default experience. We all have ingrained habits, and an easy way to make sure your new product feature really gets put through the paces of real-world usage to get feedback from your stakeholders beyond, looks good to me, is to make it the default experience. In early versions, it might just be your team, but once we've reached a version of feature complete, we can start to turn the feature on to our stakeholders and other employees to be their default experience. This requires high communication in advance, and you should be prepared to explain what's still in progress, what's known to be broken. This helps us to make sure we get a wide set of eyes on the new product by defaulting a small group of people to the new experience, unless they explicitly opt out each visit. Once it's ready, make using the new product the default behavior. Every little hoop or extra step or friction point you have to go through to test something is going to reduce the number of people who will actually give it a go. So this increases the visibility to someone who might use the tool in a different way than what you're expecting and help give you feedback, giving you real-world bug testing, while also ensuring there's no surprises from your internal stakeholders on launch day. It can also help with technical validation to start capturing bugs and inconsistencies. So for our product page example, we have to update the technical platform, and it's a one-way door. Once it's done, it's done. It's high risk. So there's business risk because this is the place where we make our money, and there's value in investing in gaining high confidence for this project. There's also a high overhead for communications. We have a lot of internal stakeholders with opinions, some of whom know our product better than we do. So the way to build confidence in our implementation before launching and get buy-in on the changes was to develop our new designs on production and share internally with our stakeholders for feedback well in advance of launch. Did it end up being worth all the extra effort? Of course. Our stakeholders in support found bugs and pointed out places where the user-generated pictures didn't look good in our designs. And it gives us real metrics in our dashboard to make sure all of our tracking and data is correct. We found some little bugs on mobile, and most importantly, no one was surprised. Every employee got a chance to kick the tires and share their feedback. We got a free bunch of people looking at this product before we shipped it to a single external user. This helps us to turn our stakeholders into partners. Stakeholders who are bought into the work we're doing and have been on this journey with us understand the trade-offs we've made and the decisions that got us to this point. They become bought into the team with you and will help you with product support and run interference with complaints on launch day. Stakeholders who aren't bought into the process will create and amplify complaints and not be your partners on launch. I live by the rule of not surprising anyone with a new launch, but really making a new product super accessible means it's not hard to do. The nature of building it out on production means you've created lots of tiny touch points for people to report bugs, provide feedback, and acclimate to the change so that once it's time to ship to your users, your external users, your internal stakeholders are comfortable in this new product world and can be on the same side as you, helping to run a smooth launch, respond to any feedback coming in from customers. If you don't do this, those same stakeholders will be your antagonists, hurling bugs and complaints your way. Get them on your team. It's worth the time. This can also extend to users. It has to happen much later than with your internal stakeholders, but cultivating a group of beta testers or users who opt in to provide feedback is an incredible way to even get your users on the same team as you in managing a new product launch. So for our example with this new product page, maybe we can share with a trusted group of 50 of our top sellers. They can share feedback, report bugs, and just have a release valve to complain about the change. I've done this before, and some of the most cranky and hard to please sellers were coming to our defense in the forums. So I can't overstate how useful it can be to just show people your product early so they can feel heard and get used to the change in order to make those people your advocates. So we've developed on production. We made it feel fast for our stakeholders, kept those stakeholders in the loop along the way, did an internal release to our colleagues, shared it with some of our trusted customers. Are we ready to launch? If you can launch in a highly controlled way, understand the real-time performance, and roll it back quickly if there's an issue, I say ship it. Error prevention is costly and time-consuming. Sometimes we absolutely must if it's a change that will be hard to undo or deeply erode confidence in our product. This requires more personal responsibility on our teams to do the right thing. We have to do the work to engineer ourselves to a place of being proactive, having good dashboards and metrics. But if we've created visibility into how our new product works, we can understand if things are working like we expect them to, roll them back if they're not, then I think it's safe to be bold. Let our users help us test. It doesn't have to be all of our users, but isn't it more fun to be launched to employees than grinding away on another week of QA? It's no secret that the last push of building a product is usually the hardest to get through. It can be tempting to rely on dedicated QA to find errors, but finding every possible issue across every browser and device is a slog. And it's not always a good use of our time. Users will find more edge cases. They're going to find that tricky bug in Firefox or places where the workflow is broken. Users help you to scale your QA. It's like hiring hundreds of people to help you with testing. I'm not saying to be irresponsible, but what's the marginal value of a week in QA versus a week of safely learning from real users? Build resilient systems with good tooling and fail forward. For our new product page, we launched to employees 2 weeks early. So while we're wrapping up our last launch tasks, internal users were helping us find all of the edge cases and bugs. On launch day, we knew it could serve a lot of traffic, and the dashboards and metrics we were looking at were functional. We also didn't have to worry as much about suddenly shipping out a lot of technical changes. We've been pushing code to production all along. We really just had to flip a feature flag and stand by. There's still plenty to do on launch day with communications and watching performance dashboards, but it was out of excitement to see how our new page is being used by users, not with the dread that maybe something is going wrong. We know nothing too bad can happen because we've been stress testing our new feature for months now. Being in production inherently reduces friction to collaboration and communication to help us get to launch day with lots of buy-in and extra testing from our partners. So much of this will depend on your organization's maturity and what the risks are in your product. So the next time you're working through how to de-risk something, ask your team about how you can flip the switch to start staging your feature on production and move to production faster. It will feel weird at first to say, can we just skip staging entirely? And it will take time to build up the tools and the practice of feature flags and internal launches. But start where you are. There's benefits to everyone on your team. Designers can see their designs with the realities of real user data. Engineers can decouple launching code from launching features. And stakeholders, including your external users, get to be a part of the work as it happens. Once you do it this way, I promise you, there will be no going back to the old way. Once you give this a try with your team, I'd love to hear it goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Next up, please welcome Lisanne Binhammer. Lisanne is currently studying at Carleton University, where she is working on her Master's of Anthropology with a specialization in digital humanities. A former senior product designer at Connected and the previous director of product design education at Bridge, Lisanne is passionate about the ins and outs of product design. She has worked on a large range of digital experiences, from city services websites to smart home products to privacy preserving mobile applications. Lisanne will share her expertise with you during our next presentation entitled Asking When, Ethics in the Product Development Process. Please welcome Lisanne to the stage.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to my talk, Asking When, Ethics in the Product Development Process. Before I get started, I just want to do a really big thank you to all of those who made the Women in Product Conference 2020 possible. It's such an exciting opportunity, and I'm very grateful to be part of such a list of inspiring speakers. Very quickly, some background about me. My name is Lisanne. I was previously a senior product designer, and I'm currently doing my MA in Anthropology with a specialization in digital humanities. And I want to start things right off the bat with a phrase that I'm guessing most of us know, move fast and break things, sort of the mantra of Silicon Valley. And what I'm hoping to do in this talk today is maybe get you to reevaluate this phrase and start thinking about building products from a more ethical, more honest, and more open place. And just to point out why I feel like that's so important. So this is a great quote from Mike Montiero. He says, designers, and I would say all product builders, have been running fast and free as of late. So this was fine before, when what we were producing was stationary. The things we produce now are moving, and they're touching the lives of more people than ever before in more aspects of their lives than ever before. You know, from relationships to healthcare to finance, our products are everywhere. And we're accountable. So by choosing to be a product builder, by choosing to be in this high impact industry, we have this weighty responsibility, almost this burden that what we produce is going to harm or help people, those who come in contact with our products. So ultimately it's up to us. And I mean, I don't think I need to really go over the number of unethical products that have caused real issues in our world as of late, from self-driving cars causing deaths to Cambridge Analytica to, you know, planned obsolescence with our devices themselves, resulting in electronic waste. So I've done a lot of research over the past year and a half about product development and ethics. If you've looked into it yourself, you'll see a lot of things out there dealing with the how. You know, how can I be ethical in product development? How can I sort of approach ethics as it relates to what I'm building? And to be honest, I find the how question kind of confusing and actually not that actionable. So instead, I want to argue that we need to think about when. We need to think about when there are moments that we can be ethical in the product development process and really start to just take action on those moments. To get into this a little bit, if we can sort of agree that the product development process moves something like from idea to product, something in market, in a linear fashion or in a slightly loopy fashion, which has been my experience, then we can also appreciate that along this journey from idea to product, we're uncovering different ethical opportunities where we can stop what we're working on and examine what we're doing, who we're building for, and who we're building with more ethically. And when I talk about ethics, I'm talking about building products that encourage well-being, that encourage inclusion, security, privacy, accountability, and trust. These things are baked into these products and processes. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to highlight some aspects from both the discovery and the delivery phase that really allow for these ethical opportunities. From moments when you're doing customer discovery to when you're prototyping, when you're doing your back-end implementation or even UI design. There are moments that we can be ethical and we need to take them now. And I want you to think about this like building an ethical toolbox. This will allow you to respond to ethical issues as they arise at these different moments. Just like we have different tools in our toolbox for conducting research or doing product design. We need to have an ethical toolbox and we need to cultivate it as product builders to have impact in our industry. So let's get started. Some moments in the discovery process. Let's say you're problem finding, or you're doing customer discovery, you're doing user interviews, or you're validating concepts that you have prototyped. You might find yourself with some questions like, how might someone else understand this research? Would they find different problems? Another ethical question that could be asked is, how am I contextualizing who I am talking to? Do I view my research participants as collaborators in this process or as users of an end product? Also, when you're asking questions in interviews, how has the way that you've framed a particular question resulted in how a participant understands what to do? These are all real ethical dilemmas and questions that come up in this part of the process. And what you want to do as a design researcher, as a UX designer, as a strategist, you want to be open and you want to be wary of the ambiguity effect and other cognitive biases that happen during this research process. You want to avoid framing your questions in such a way as to guide them to particular answers. You want to be accommodating towards different types of tech literacy, and you want to look for physical and digital barriers to communication. I just want to point out some great methodologies that you can employ during this part. This one is great. It was done in collaboration with Streetgaris and Method Kit. It's called Method Kit with Privileges. And it's a stack of cards that you can take to really step in to your participants' shoes and understand research or interviews from a different perspective, be it sexual orientation, ethnicity, or even gender. Another great tool for your toolbox is IDEO's The Little Book of Design Research Ethics. This is a high-level book that really employs different methods that you can take at different aspects during the research process to cultivate a more ethical perspective. Okay, another moment in the discovery process to look at. So let's say you're doing synthesis or generating concepts during an ideation session. This comes up a lot. I'm feeling overwhelmed by the sheer volume of our research. How can I keep going? This is an ethical question, not for your product, but for you and those who you're working with. You might also face a question like, I have an idea, but how am I supposed to know the repercussions of that idea in the future? These are great questions. In terms of mindsets, you want to keep track of your mental well-being during these points. Read up on Vivian Castillo, practice empathy, and create a safe space for your team. You really want to ideate inclusively. Look at your language, your tools, your communication styles, even geographies. In terms of looking at the repercussions of your concepts, you want to employ second-order thinking. So this means not looking at the intended consequence of what you built, the first consequence of what you built, but rather the second and third. Familial effects and relationship effects and cultural effects on what you built. So this is a really fun method. This is from Artifact. It's called the Tarot Cards of Tech. And you can use this to sort of future-proof your product. So each of the cards, for example, this one's the Catalyst, looks at how different things that might happen in the future will affect how your products is being used. The last part of the discovery process that I really want to highlight is if you're prototyping. So let's say you're building out a flow in something like InVision. A really good question to ask yourself is, who am I including in this prototype, and who is being excluded? When we exclude people, it's often unintentional, but we're erasing people by not including them even in our prototype design. We want to use reflective content of our intended user bases, even at that lo-fi level. We want to account for different levels of tech literacy, so when we test those prototypes, they're accessible. And if we're co-designing with other people, we want to consider cost barriers and what tools can allow the most people access to what we're designing. So some methods, maybe some of you are familiar. A great tool to check color contrast and color blindness is Stark. It's just a sketch plugin. Again, this concept of ethics as relating to accessibility relates right down to the colors you're using in your prototypes. A pro tip, you also always want to use an 8th grade reading level if you're designing for a broad audience. So you can use Hemingway, you can use Grammarly, and these tools can help you understand what level your copy is actually at. Moving on to the delivery side of things. So let's say you're devising your solution architecture or you're doing back-end implementation. Things to examine during this time is, how am I coding for prescriptive behaviors? Code really enables one way or another, and it encourages certain values and beliefs. So for example, like buttons, they reinforce that I need other people's appreciation to create value in what I do. Another question that you might face as an engineer is, I'm pretty sure there's something wrong or unethical about what I'm asked to build, but what can I do? Again, ethics as relating not just to the products, but the people involved in the process. I found this stat really interesting. It's from the 2018 Stack Overflow survey. How would developers report ethical problems with code? It really depends, and it's sort of this messy gray area. Some people would do it, but just only within their company. We need to embody these different mindsets when it comes to doing solution architecture or backend implementation. We need to get comfortable with the idea of data minimization. We need to think about letting people feel empowered through whistleblower policies. We need to celebrate our mistakes and really look for ways to be better. And we need to, of course, keep basic data hygiene practices in mind. So this is an awesome tool. It's the Ethical OS. It looks at different risk areas that you can consider when you're building out the OS of your system. It also relates to this idea of future-proofing, like I mentioned before. And lastly, in the delivery phase, when you're designing for the user experience or user interface of a product. I got this question a lot when I was teaching UX and UI design. Is it okay that I'm misdirecting attention so that people might not notice this other thing? So can I use up this pop-up to sort of make my participants sign up for this product or service? Another great question, similar to the ideation one, is how can I possibly anticipate the number of different ways that people will use and interact with this interface? So all this to say is whether you intended something to happen as a product designer or you didn't intend something to happen as a product designer, product builder, it doesn't matter. If the consequences are unethical, you are responsible and you are at fault. You need to think about what the outcome might be before you actually start designing that experience and designing that interface. Start with this mindset. Don't treat people like edge cases. There shouldn't be edge cases. Also, co-design with the people you're designing for. Sit down with your developers, make sure they understand what you want from the UX and UI, and look at the impact of the UX you're creating from different vantage points. So this is a great method called the Laws of UX. It's this really cool website with a bunch of different cards, and that teaches you how, with what you're designing, will encourage or discourage certain behaviors. So for example, the aesthetic usability effect, people inherently will assume that things that are more aesthetic are more usable. Also an aside for all people involved in UX, UI, even product managers, please do not employ dark patterns. learn what they are, and avoid them. So hopefully today I've answered some of your questions around when I can be ethical. What are these moments, either in the discovery process or delivery process during the entire product development lifecycle, that I can interrupt and think about trustworthiness, inclusion, accessibility, and all these different factors that make up an ethical product designer. Hopefully also today you've started to re-examine the idea of moving fast and breaking things, and instead perhaps moving at a pace in which allows us to be ethical and responsibly minded product builders. We want to build products that are future-proof for future generations and our future selves. Thanks so much. Feel free to connect with me and enjoy.
Thank you, Lisanne. Next up, please welcome Sravanthi Kadali, product lead of the Rider app user experience at Lyft. Sravanthi was most recently responsible for Lyft's award-winning app redesigns in 2018 and 2019. She is motivated by her interest in human behavior and hopes to enable other product leaders to better understand their users using both qualitative and quantitative perspectives. She began her career reading screenplays at a film production company in LA before joining Capital One's product management and analytics program prior to joining Lyft as a data scientist. Sravanthi will share her expertise with you in our next presentation entitled Lessons Learned the Hard Way from Lyft's Redesign. Please join me in welcoming Sravanthi to our stage.
Hi, Women in Product. I'm so excited to be here. I was at Women in Product last year, and it was incredible to see over 2,000 women and men come together to share their experiences. In my view, the best way to uplevel your career is from learning from the experiences of others. And so what I'm sharing with you today is a brief case study that has takeaways that you can apply to your work today. At Lyft, I've been lucky to lead 2 major redesigns of Lyft's Rider app. When I joined Lyft in 2016, our app looked like what's shown on the left. Then, starting in 2017, we worked on a full-scale redesign of the entire app, which finally launched in 2018 and won a Material Design Award from Google, among other honors. That was followed most recently by our next strategic app update in 2019, which showcased that Lyft is no longer just a rideshare app, and that we also focus on bikes, scooters, public transit options, and rentals all in the Lyft app. Each of those 2 projects took more than a year of design, development, research, and A/B testing. And so in just 8 minutes, I'm going to distill the stories of the design in the middle into 3 things you can take with you into your work. Stepping back, that project began in early 2017, and it started as a blue sky design project. We ultimately landed on a new app that was a big step forward from our current app. The GIF on the left shows you the previous flow, and the one on the right, which starts a bit later, shows you the new flow. The new app had a modern design language that we wanted to build on top of for the future. It also had a new sequence of steps, and one big reason for that is that we wanted to make it easier for people to compare across time and price across multiple modes of transportation. One reason for that is that long-term Lyft's vision is that more and more users will try shared rides. And as you can see on the left, that wasn't very easy to try out or to see in the old app. And so we had a very aggressive mandate to ship this entirely new experience, but we still wanted to understand the impact. So we set up a giant A/B test in late 2017, where an initial 5% of users got the new app on the right. The day we launched the new app felt like a huge milestone. After a months-long design and development effort, it felt like we were finally nearing the end of this project. However, as data started coming in, we saw a decrease in key metrics, with fewer users taking rides in the new app. We knew this was normal, so we fixed a couple of things, re-released the app into the world, and then waited again for results. However, again, we saw decreases in rides and other key metrics. Imagine that cycle a couple more times. Since we had tested everything at once, it was really hard to tell exactly what to iterate on, and it took several cycles to figure out what we needed to fix. So this wasn't anywhere close to the end. It was actually just the beginning. For weeks and then for months, my team huddled in a conference room together, digging through research to figure out exactly what to iterate on. And what we learned was to design holistically but test incrementally, which was not the approach that we had taken. Margaret Gold Stewart has said that large-scale user experience design needs to have both audacity and humility. And in our case, we had plenty of audacity by taking a broad approach and completely rethinking everything. However, unintentionally, by tackling too many goals at once and testing it all together, we made it pretty hard to get feedback from our users. I've since learned that this mistake is one that almost every company makes during their growth phase. We can all think of examples, which I don't need to name here, of redesigns or big product launches that blew way past A/B testing into users and then got a lot of negative feedback. In our case, since we got that early signal from our data, we rolled up our sleeves to iterate within that new experience. And to iterate, the two tools we turned to were first analytics, which enabled us to dive deep into how users were actually using our app. Before becoming a PM, my background was in data science and I studied behavioral economics, so I know it's really valuable for users to show you through actions rather than just telling you what they think. The second, the other side of the coin, was qualitative user research, which gave us the other side of the picture. It enabled us to speak to users directly, to understand more deeply how they felt about the new app and get to the why. And as one example of how we use them together, here's a screen that you might recognize today in the Lyft app. And one of the goals of this screen is to reinforce your destination. So as you can see from this top section of the screen, we show you your destination and give you the ability to edit if needed. But first, in 2017, instead of this final UI, we started with this UI where we showed you map pins with a small caret that let you edit. Looking into the data in early 2018, we saw a small percent drop in how many users changed their locations, but it was really hard to tell if that was important. First of all, the baseline was small, as in not a lot of users change locations even today. Second, the change in behavior was small. And then third, looking at conversion as one way to figure out if this was important, we didn't really see a big difference. However, our employees and our beta testers were really vocal. Users felt pretty frustrated that they couldn't figure out how to edit when they needed to. And so we took the leap that maybe this was worth changing. So next, we went to a design that makes it very clear how to edit with the giant word edit on the pin itself to validate whether there was an issue here. And after testing this out, surprisingly, it turned out that this actually was a big issue, and not just a big issue, but one of the biggest issues with our new app. After making this fix and a few others, we saw all of our key net metrics go from negative to positive, with the new design leading to more rides, particularly from new users. This turned the entire product around and it put us on a path to ship. The fix is interesting because it illustrated a few different things. One, the combination of quantitative and qualitative let us make the call on whether to fix this. Second, it's really important to focus on the basics and obsess over things that you might find simple, because your users might not understand aspects of your product that you think are simple. And third, when you want to validate something, you should really consider testing the most obvious version of that change. We were able later on to evolve from this design that just says the word edit as a really quick fix to get people to edit into the design that you saw at the beginning. But this was really important as a first step so that we understood what we needed to focus on. So after we made that fix, we saw the results we had intended, and then some. And we finally launched. That was August 2018, so it was almost a year after our original rollout had begun. And on top of the Material Design Award, on top of the positive metrics, we also got a lot of really positive feedback from our users. One example is that Jack Dorsey even tweeted about our new app and said that he loved it. So if I want to leave you with one last thought, it's this: big bets are worth it. After that months-long experience, I absolutely still think building this new app was worth it. Focusing on iteration alone would have required us to find hacky ways to expose more users to shared rides and would have prevented us from creating many other features down the road. For example, that 2019 update that I mentioned, where we wanted to surface bike, scooter, transit options all in the Lyft app. Looking back, we got to a place that simply would not have been possible if we had iterated. There's a tension right now in the tech world between intuition-focused work and more growth-focused or analytics-focused work, and what I'm trying to tell you today is that you don't have to choose. But when you take on a big bet, don't underestimate the long process that happens after you design the image on the right to launch it to your users and actually learn from them. That also means being willing to fail. Failure is totally okay because it's the humility part of that equation, giving you the chance to actually listen to your users. And even if you get everything right, it'll take time just because your users are used to the old design or the old experience, and you've got to bring them along with you. In our example, we saw dramatically different results between new and existing Lyft users for exactly that reason. And so, when we approached our next major app update in 2019, we took all those learnings from 2017 and 2018. First, we designed holistically, then broke the project into key features that we've launched separately. We set ourselves up with both user research and in-depth data science into the changes we had, and yes, it was also worth it. That story will have to wait for a future talk. If you follow me on LinkedIn or on my website, I'll be sharing a post soon to give you a peek. And until then, I look forward to seeing the big bets you all launch next. Thanks again for having me here.
Thank you, Kate Zasada, Lisanne Binhammer, and Sravanthi Kadali, and to all of you who have joined us live. Meet us at the main stage in just a few minutes for our closing keynote. Be sure to check out our many ways to network with your fellow attendees, reach out directly and meet someone new in our networking mixers under sessions, where you'll be paired with a fellow PM for a timed chat. Also, we want your feedback. See our in-app agenda to review sessions and talks, then continue the discussions in group chats. Don't forget to check out our virtual selfie station at the hashtag 20WhipApp and grab your Women in Product swag at our online store at bonfire.com/store/whip. Are you inspired by something shared in a session today? Try our Take It Further challenge. Head to the attendee section in the app where you can search by name and connect beyond the event. Bonus points, request a virtual coffee date for next week directly in the app, and you'll have the option to add meetings to your calendar of choice. Again, thank you all for joining us.